way, sometimes you get to know that the readers or the watchers actually watch your videos, because what it was is on this hangout or video me and James did, because obviously this was about Southampton docks and that was its maiden voyage. Me and James must have mentioned about the Titanic because we've done it a few times lately.
Did. Because I remember saying it's to find the location of this strange thing in the water. It's roughly opposite.
Because you were talking about it being a real thing, and I said, well, I don't know if it is anymore, because how do you not know that they haven't done this? And then what it was is DJ Johnson on Facebook obviously had watched the video, sent me a link to UAP. It's called Iceberg.
Yeah, very interesting video. Something I think most of us have never even thought about, with the location and how far south an iceberg would have to come, and it's going against the Gulf Stream basically that runs clockwise.
Because the other day what it was is I was saying is that we only have their say-so that the Titanic sunk now. We can't, you know that thing, you can't verify it because it's too long ago. Obviously there's papers, and then someone will say, oh, I knew someone on the Titanic, whatever. But what it is I was thinking, well, maybe it was always the sister ship was okay, and they pretended they had the Titanic, and they pretended to sink it, and it was one of their games like they do to us today, and making you believe that something had happened when it never happened.
Even beyond that, what can you buy bags of if you've got ice all over your path? But
I know what it was as well. Josh, on the hangout the other day, he said no personal items were found, like rings or bones.
But even leaving aside even that, before you can get to that aspect, you've got an iceberg which is made up of frozen fresh water. Seawater which contains salt will freeze at, I forget what the figure is, it's something like minus 137, I think. Don't quote me on that because I can't remember, but we're talking about April on the 41st degree line, and you've got a freshwater frozen that's floating in salt water, which at April would not be.
Well, should we watch cold. A bit of his video and then he can explain it? Okay.
Makes a good point.
Rest in peace, Titanic. Rest in pieces. Well, rust in pieces or whatever. They made a movie about it. You know it's probably a hoax. Now, I thought about it, and I thought, all the times I've flown over this area of the ocean where supposedly the Titanic went down, I don't recall seeing icebergs. Not saying it's never true. It probably is true that there are icebergs there every once in a while, maybe. Otherwise, the story really wouldn't have had any sense to it.
So, is it all his story?
Well, as UAP points out, there are no photographs of this ship hitting an iceberg or sinking, and yet look at this picture. Now you could say it's an artist's impression, but to me the clouds look genuine, the water in the foreground and the reflections look genuine. The ship maybe looks more like a sketch, so I think what we're actually looking at here is an overlay of photographs and sketches put together.
Well, it has to be, because it says the sinking of the Titanic, which they don't have a picture for.
Yeah.
So that can't be real.
No, but what I'm saying is the artist is very good at doing water and reflections, because to me that foreground looks like a photograph. If they can do a Stanley Kubrick background effect with the moon, I'm sure they can do it with
I know, and when you actually look at the
images.
pictures below, the ones with the blue in it, you're actually looking at not real things, they're like cartoons.
They do look consistently to be artwork.
Oh, but is that the iceberg that got the Titanic?
But if you look at those bottom pictures, does the water look real, or does that look like a
they're
drawing?
cartoons. These are just...
But then when you look at the black and white one, that looks very convincingly like that is a photograph of water. that's been mixed in. So, I mean, just because there's an iceberg and a ship, it doesn't mean it's...
Well, who caught that then?
That could be a real picture.
Who took that picture then?
I don't know. It doesn't...
I think that's a painting.
Well,
it's just because it's next to this iceberg.
The picture could have been taken anywhere if it was genuine. It could have been taken around Greenland or anywhere where there's supposedly all this ice.
But I think that's just they've put the iceberg there because it's the Titanic.
And they mentioned there's a sister ship, so I mean, do you even know that is the Titanic that's being shown there? Is that just because the caption says it is?
Imagine those people knowing what they did, knowing that they made everybody. Because I lived in an area where one of those Zeebrugge ferries went down.
Yeah.
It was supposed to go to Dieppe, and in fact, me and my mum got tickets. Because it was like a freebie thing in the paper. And what it was is you just get your tickets and you go on that day.
Yeah.
I was pregnant with my middle son and we'd only been back a couple of days when it happened. But we could have had those tickets.
Yeah. Well.
And as if that was... well, anyway, let's just... But so we've had disasters.
Or near
Disasters.
disasters.
Especially for somewhere like Southampton or the people that were supposed to be on this boat. You're going to get a lot of upset and grief. Like where I lived, there's a lot of staff on one of those ferries.
Yeah.
Came from, and so everybody was upset. The small town was upset. So they would have, they make people have feelings they don't need to have because it never happened.
Yeah. I dispute the whole story, to be honest.
This never happened.
I dispute the entire story about the Titanic. And like UAP says, if they've made it into a film, that puts the idea into people's heads. Do you know what, as well,
James? Don't forget, on all the films we've watched, they make that Titanic seem so big. And then, even though these things are even much bigger, but the ferries they have today makes that look like a yacht. Yeah,
the ocean liners you can go on world cruises on, that makes that look tiny.
Makes that look like a yacht.
Yeah, definitely. But what do we really know is real about any history?
I mean, is that supposed to be a flaw? Look, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, was it like 4? There's loads of flaws there.
The fact that they've made a film and every now and again it will be brought back to life into people's minds to keep this memory of this story going. They do this a lot with things. They bring them back. I mean,
but you would none of us have thought that the Titanic wasn't real.
But like the Star Wars toys, they're brought back every 7 years to catch each generation. It's all about making money. This
was to bring something to people's lives. It's not. Should we talk in the next bit? Because we've got another bit. We're going to listen to just a little bit more. But anyway, let's listen to the next bit.
We don't have any pictures of the Titanic sinking. We don't have pictures of the rescue boats out in the ocean. We don't have pictures of Jack Squat, but we have a picture of the very iceberg that sank the Titanic. Yeah, right.
It's very strange that they can find the iceberg that did it, but they can't have any pictures with the iceberg.
Just looking at that picture, I know they say there's a lot more
iceberg. It looks like a dragon or something.
There's a lot more iceberg below the surface. But realistically, when you see the size of oceans, do you think if that ice melted it would drastically change the height of sea level? Because I dispute that entire thing. I mean, the pictures you see of icebergs, there's vast expanses of salt seawater around it. None of this makes any sense, and it begs the question: where does this frozen fresh water come from in the first place? Regardless of what people want to think the Antarctic is, it's like, well, where is this fresh frozen water coming from? What effect does it have when it mixes with seawater, which has got salt crystals in it?
Well, there's two things, right? A, it's his story, and I am with UAP and stuff. Same thing. Or if it really did happen, or that really was there, maybe something had happened to the place we live. You know, we all know we've been flooded.
Yeah, 1912, 1812.
Because why would that ice be there?
It's...
And they've left half the story out, like, the world was in chaos. Didn't, you know, the cold, the flu thing happen after that, you know, the Spanish flu.
Yeah. Well, they may well. I mean, I'm not disputing. Maybe there were ships. We don't know the origins of those ships apart from the narrative that they tell us on anything. Maybe they're ships from a different
civilization. It's not
civilization.
mentioned the world was getting over Spanish flu when the Titanic left.
Well, no, that was slightly a few years later, but
it's just like our history over Napoleon.
Yeah, it's one news story after another news story, so you're just bombarded with these things. But
I mean, have you ever seen an iceberg that looked like that? I mean, that actually looks like it's melting.
Looks like almost like there's a structure under there frozen in it. But
well, dragon, look, there's a dragon. There's his eye. Look, there's his ear. There's his nose. There's his eye. That's only a joke. But this thing looks. If it's this colour like this thing's melting.
Well, it must melt when it comes into contact with salt, because that's what you put down on pathways and things. They sell it in bags, rock salt.
But you're not going to get
an
iceberg floating all the way down there, are you? Without most of it melting. Like, they're lying again.
It's coming into warmer waters. It's going against the flow. No, I don't see how this iceberg has miraculously got that far down when it's going the opposite way of the natural flow of the Atlantic. It's the Gulf Stream.
He's going to finish the little video out. He's now going to talk about the temperatures.
Yeah.
So, do you want to say anything about that?
Well, no, I think he explains it. UAP explains this very well. It's like, well, yeah, it's so obvious now. He's pointed it out. It's like, why didn't?
How the hell didn't we just realise it before?
It's the narrative paints this picture of majestic, sort of vast expanses of white, but there's questions like, why is there that island above the North Russian coast near the Bering Straits, and it's devoid of ice, and yet I'd say they've masked things out on Greenland. That's why it appears mostly white. I don't think that's genuine. I think they're covering things up. They don't want us to see.
I was gobsmacked when I found out that Greenland has the same temperatures as us in the summer.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like, say for instance, some places in America could get it really nice weather from March till October, maybe November, and then they get a winter.
Well, as I understand it, Texas
but we get it from May
currently
to September. So we could get the same kind of weather in, but we just don't get it. And this is what happens in Greenland. They get the same kind of weather as us, but they don't get 4 or 5 months of it. They might get 2 months of it. But the fact that they got to our temperatures, I was really shocked. That's through research. So instead of listening to everything out there, you need to go and do your own research, because half the time you find, even James, when we were looking up history, that site says this one says that, and you're like, but then that one says these things that I never heard of before. And then you're like, it's just suddenly history's all...
Then when you ask the questions, and because things don't make sense, they don't tally, then you get accused of being a conspiracy theorist for asking awkward questions they can't answer.
What we're saying is, and UAP, I'll let him just say that bit to explain it, but this isn't right, James.
No, not at all.
How could we not think it was April? You're not going to get ice travelling down in April.
Yeah. It's one
unless
of those things
we had some catastrophic, I can't say the word. What's you call it?
Catastrophe.
Yeah, here. And ice was because we've had some big flood for some reason. It's brought ice down.
Well, if you think about it,
but they're not mentioning that, are they?
The Titanic story is so full of facts and figures, like everything else. So you get sort of lost in the details with it, and then don't consider the obvious and the natural. Like, hold on, we're in April. Where is this ship sunk?
I never thought that it wasn't real.
but now it's... But I can give you, personal testimony. When I was in Sweden in the first 2 weeks of July of 2016, it was on a par with the Mediterranean for temperatures. I was quite surprised. I didn't realise they got it so all. And people I've spoken to on Messenger have said about Canada the same thing. In the summer, it gets really warm.
Yes, we've had a hangout with Mikey, who lives in the middle of Canada. He said what it is it may only be 2 months, but they never think, is this heat going to stop? And then it gets cold again.
They get more of an extreme.
But they don't explain that actually, you know, this part of wherever he is, I think he's over here somewhere, up here, that this gets really hot in the summer, like California. In fact, that state there, my cousin's gone from, well, it might be that one then, California to the next state up, and it's not very hot there.
No.
So why is it hot up there?
Again, it doesn't make sense.
It's not hot there. And I told you, when Trouble did she was looking at the equator line on a globe, they make it always look like it's in the middle. But when you actually look at the land, all of this is in the northern hemisphere. There's only 2 tips, and
it does match the colours on that very dark red is further down, isn't it? Yes,
but then how could they? I made a video about it. There are hot places and cold places. Lithuania up here, they go to the beach up here. Well, up here, sort of like, say, Newcastle, we don't go to... It's not hot up there, is it?
No, I don't think so.
These people flock up there, and they do in Denmark. The most important place for them to go is to the tip of Denmark. There's a little tiny piece of land which comes out there, and the North Sea meets the East Sea, and you can go and see it. And they like the sand dunes. And actually, I realise there's a pyramid buried there as well as you can see army barracks, which one of them's in the sea. So it has risen a bit, the water.
Yeah.
Anyway, but they wouldn't be building jetties out like the Isle of Wight one if if we had global thing. But anyway, they go up there, right? And they can have nice weather. And we actually know now with Sweden, they get really hot weather up there.
Yeah.
So how can that happen? They have hotter weather than we do.
Midway up the country, they get a more intense heat and a more intense cold than we do.
This land is twisted round a bit, so it's not lying the way it is, and England lies over here a bit to the left. That's what I think with my research. But should we finish the video now? Because we were talking about the Titanic, and you know, we're just trying to show you that nothing is real.
Well, UAP explains the different temperatures you get in the water, so again, that sort of is showing the same thing. It's in that sort of light blue or green band, so that ice should be melting.
Especially April.
Yes, yeah, that doesn't make sense, does it?
But it had to go down without any, hardly any survivors, and there was no ship.
Yeah, it seems like just a
wow,
story.
You know, we've grown up. They've even made a romantic that thing with
the film Titanic.
Yeah, Kate, what's her name?
Winslet, was it?
Yeah, all that, like, oh my god. We know that was a love story and slightly made up, but you thought the bit about the boat was real.
Seems that way.
Okay, on with the video. Thanks, James.
You're
welcome. In the Atlantic Ocean, which is warmer waters, that is an area where freshwater ponds inland that aren't salinated have a hard time keeping ice past late January, mid-February. Now, the Titanic was sank in April, so we're expected to believe that a chunk of ice made its way down there. Now, the location is approximately, get this, 5,000 miles south of the Arctic Ocean. 5,000 miles. And they're saying that the chunk of ice may have lasted all the way to World War I, another few years. Well, I doubt it. The Titanic...
Well, me and James, what we thought we'd do was we were going to add a bit more to the video, because we thought, let's just go and find the footage and see what's happening with the people, so, you know, waving goodbye to the boat. And what did we find, James?
Diddly squat.
One video, everybody's copied, and you couldn't say that was the ship leaving Southampton.
No, not at all. interestingly, on the footage we have looked at,
these are all the same videos.
there's only
Anything
three.
with 451 on it.
There's only
It's the
three
same
funnels
video.
with smoke
Same
coming out.
video.
The rearmost funnel has got no smoke coming out of it, which I find a bit odd.
These are the same videos. They're all. That's the same video. I don't know what that is, but
Does seem rather odd, because I'm sure I have seen footage of it leaving Southampton, old black and white film, but
so where's
whether
the
it's just
footage?
not on YouTube or...
That's the same video. That's the same video. They've been copied. These are all the same video. All with the same. And make that look enormous, don't they? I mean, look at that. It's gigantic, but it wasn't.
Well, it's said to have been the biggest ship in its
Look at
day.
that.
I mean, compared to modern vessels, no, it's not big at all. It's more...
It's not. It's maybe not a small boat, but it's not as big as they've made. You like the great big, the biggest boat of its time.
I would say it's about the same size as a ferry that crosses from Dover to Calais or something.
Just a big yacht. But it looks big there, doesn't it?
The impression we're given is it's massive, but it's about 800-900 foot long.
Yeah. Just a minute ago, we were actually looking at the whole boat, but I mean, I just stopped this footage. Does that look super duper fantastic?
It looks dirty. It doesn't look brand new and
I
pristine.
noticed it on all this. This doesn't look very good. I mean, if you find footage on it, it just doesn't look all painted and new. I mean, how do we not know? They could have lied about that, and that's a Tartaria boat.
Well, even on the official...
That's a Tartaria boat.
Even looking at the official narrative, if you look into the finances of the White Star Line, they were financially in trouble, and that's where the whole story seemed to come about swapping ships over. If I remember rightly, it's to do with the insurance, and this voyage was make or break of the White Star Line. So I don't know what happened to the company after that.
It's supposed to be a new ship.
It looks worn. It looks dirty. It looks grubby.
You can see it in the
Yeah.
It doesn't look like this wonderfully new painted boat which has just been made.
Just on that lower section under that gangway bridge, you've got that. It looks like patched up bits on there. It doesn't look right at all.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you.
Yeah, it doesn't look right, does it?
No.
No.
Maybe that's another. Maybe it's a ship that comes from the past and they've taken it.
Yeah, that's what I think. Maybe that is the truth
Oh,
of it.
there's three. Right. A, it's history. B, it never happened. Or C, it was a ship from another.
I would go.
era.
I would go with option C, and it's just a cover story to get rid of it.
Yeah, because the sister ship stayed.
Yeah, but I think that didn't that sink as well eventually. I can't even remember that one.
Oh. Anyway, we're finishing now, aren't we, James?
Yeah.
We just wanted to add that bit.
Yeah.